Hello, in today's tutorial we're going to go over InDesign CC 2021 Classroom in a Book Chapter 8, which is all about working with different types of typography and the fun stuff that you get to do to make your designs look even a little bit better. So let's go ahead and jump into InDesign. Let's go File and Open and go grab that start file from our lesson number 8. And let's grab Start. Let's do a File Save As. Oop, wrong one. File Save As. And first initial, last name, underscore InDesign, Classroom in a Book, Chapter 8. I'm in my Lesson 8 folder, so let's go ahead and say Save. All right, so let's first thing make sure we're in our Essentials workspace. So I'm going to do Essentials. Let's do Reset Essentials, make sure we're all starting from the same place. And the first thing we're going to do is adjust our vertical spacing. So InDesign gives us a lot of different ways to adjust vertical spacing because we are in a, traditionally we think, you put a carriage return or enter after each paragraph, but sometimes it's a little bit too big. Sometimes we just need to make things look a little bit better. So let's change the space between these paragraphs. Let's start here at this bottom box. Now let's do Control plus and zoom in, or you can grab your zoom tool and zoom in. Let's go ahead and zoom. Oh, come back too big. And somehow I made chocolate chips have its own line. There we go. So magically, what next thing we're going to do is grab in this type tool. Let's go right before this ½ pound of strawberries and let's drag select all the way down to our protein. So all the way down to the bottom. And the first thing we're going to do is go into our paragraph panel. So let's go ahead and go to our window, open up type and tables. Let's go ahead and open up paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and dock that over here on the side so I can get to it again later. All right, so that way when I undock it, it'll just make it small. We can even change that so it's just a little baby one. All right, so with our paragraph, let's go ahead and add a space after each paragraph. So this is a much easier way than trying to put like a carriage return in between each one because sometimes it's just a little bit too big. So let's go in our space after, which you notice is the third one down on the right hand side, and let's go ahead and change that to 0.0625. And now you see it just gives us a nice little bit of space in between each one. It's going to go ahead and overset our text just a little bit, but once we change the fonts and everything, we'll be much better off to deal with that one. All right, let's make sure we do an edit, a deselect all, and a Control S to save. All right, so next thing I want to do is use one of our Adobe fonts called Adobe Castellan Pro. It should be included in your as long as you're on Adobe Cloud and connected online, it should be fine. If you can't get to it, that's okay. Use a different font. All right, so let's go to Window. Now let's come down to your text and tables and grab character. I'm going to go ahead and dock that one as well. So within character, I'm going to go ahead and click in. And I can either do, let's see, first thing I want to do is telling me find more, but I'm not seeing the find more right here. I know another place to find it. All right. This is one of those cases where the book's not quite matching what we're looking for. All right, so we're going to go ahead and be in our font menu. And in our font menu, if we do the click down, it should give us a bunch more. There we go. There's our find more. And let's go ahead and go to the find more, and it's going to say, okay, what do you want to look for? You can scroll down your list to find Adobe Castellan Pro. And you can either turn on the entire typeface or you can just turn in one part of it. You want to go ahead and turn on the whole thing. So make sure on Adobe Castellan Pro you do activate and say activate the fonts. Say okay. It's going to go ahead and download those. So you should be able to see the entire family from your font menu. All right, so let's go ahead and scroll up on our window. And the first thing we're going to do is play with this strawberries. So let's go ahead and Double click on our strawberry, select the whole thing. Let's go ahead and our character panel and choose that Adobe Caslon. And we want to go ahead and grab the regular. And for here, we want to go ahead and make sure, so we've got Adobe Caslon and regular. After the S, let's drag and just do the S and do something special with that. So let's go ahead and choose and make that one just italic. So just the S is italic. Now you're going to notice that you get kind of a very fancy one. That's because this one's got a lot of extra glyphs to it. So we're going to go ahead and play with some of those. So let's go ahead and go down to our quote. Come down. Use my space bar in my hand. So let's go to our quote. Let's use our type tool. And if you quadruple click in here with your type tool, you should be able to get the whole thing. All right, let's go to our character panel. We want to go ahead and make sure it says Adobe Caslon. And let's go ahead and make it semi-bold italic. Let's go ahead and make it size 24. And our leading, which is our space between the lines, let's set that to 35, so we've got lots of space. And let's hit Tab and Enter. So we are actually using what's called an open type font. So with the open type, we actually have a few different glyphs or type available that we wouldn't normally. So let's go ahead and take a peek at what we've got. If we go here to our hamburger menu, let's go to open type. You'll see the one called Swash is automatically turned on. Swash is what makes that Y look a little bit special, the F and the P. So those have been kind of created with those extra glyphs. So what happens if we undo it? Let's go ahead and go to our swash and undo so you can kind of see what does and doesn't turn on with those. So let's go ahead and turn it back on. All right, so now let's go ahead and click out. Okay, so if we click back in here, we get this little O. That tells us that this open type badge. So we want to make sure that we can click on that. Oh, let's go ahead and select the whole thing. Control A. Now let's click on the O, and let's go ahead and turn on these discretionary ligatures. And notice how it's now turning those T's into something a little bit more fancy. So that's fun. Let's do an edit, deselect all, and a Control S to save. So now we're going to go ahead and go here to the bottom. We want to add a special character. So with our type tool, we want to go to type and then glyphs. And with glyphs, we want to go ahead and we're going to be using that again later. So I'm going to go ahead and dock it. And I want to go into ornaments. So I'm going to come down here to ornaments. It's going to show me all the different types of ornaments that are available in this typeface. They're telling us to go ahead and use this kind of the heart one. So I'm going to double click and it's going to put that in there. And I'm going to go ahead and collapse glyphs for now. So let's go ahead and highlight that heart. Let's go into our character. And let's go ahead and make it 122 points. And then I'm going to do a tab. This was nice and big. So now let's make it look a little bit different in our fill. Let's go ahead and make it strawberry red. And let's give it a stroke. So let's give it a 1-point stroke. And let's make that stroke the green, stem green. And we should be able to click out and see that now we have this funky, it's a nice illustrative element that was really easy to put in because of the glyph. Let's do a Control S and save. So now we're going to go ahead and take a peek at more glyphs over on our recipe over here. So right now, if you look at the 1/2, we know that says half a pound, but it's kind of ugly. So we're going to go ahead and replace it with a glyph. So let's go ahead and select our 1/2. Let's go into our glyphs and let's change this to numbers. And go ahead and change it, double click to that half pound. So let's go ahead and do that for all the fractions in here. So you see you get the subscript and superscript, and it just looks a lot more professional. And that's definitely what we want to have it look like. So use those glyphs in your favor. Let's do a Control S and save. So now we're going to go ahead and change this recipe a little bit so that we're working with some columns. So let's go ahead and grab our selection tool and select the frame that's holding that recipe. Let's go to Object and Text Frame Options. From Text Frame Options, we want to make sure our preview is turned on. I'm going to pull it here or out of the way. And I want to go ahead and make that 2 columns. So whenever possible, use your text frame options. Don't draw more text boxes. Use your text frames to make life a little bit easier. In that gutter, which is that space in between, let's go ahead and bump that up to 0.25 and say OK. So we're looking pretty good. So now we've got this chocolate covered strawberries, which looks kind of weird. We want to make what's called a straddle head. So let's go ahead, grab our text tool, select that font, those words, and let's go to our paragraph panel menu. So here's our paragraph. Let's go to our panel menu, and we want to come down here to span columns. From span columns, make sure you click your preview so you can see what's happening. We want to go ahead and tell it to span columns. We want to go over all of the columns, and we're going to say OK. So now instead of having to draw yet another box, you've made it so that you're having the software do the work for you, which is what you always want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and break this one, and we'll come back to adjusting columns here in a minute.